Hi, I'm Coach Corey Wayne, and this is my video coaching newsletter. And the topic of today's newsletter is going to be Crotch on Fire. Well, I've got an email here from a woman. She's 64, I believe it is, and her husband is 74. So there's a 10-year age difference. They've been together for about 40 years. She loves her husband, but they kind of have a boring life, as she said, but she's a loyal, faithful person. However, her husband basically has zero interest in sex, and he has no libido, and her crotch, she didn't really care too much, and then she actually works in the correction industry, and I guess sometime during the past year, another guard started working there with her, and he started flirting with her and giving her attention, and so now her crotch is kind of on fire, and she's thinking about having an affair, but obviously she doesn't want to do anything to screw her family up. And she's obviously totally conflicted because she's married to a man who she adores, but they don't have a sex life. And she's like, what do? I don't want to spend the rest of my life not being fulfilled sexually. So this is an interesting perspective because from everything she shared, it appears like she's a very loyal person, but she's obviously got needs that aren't being met. So I got a quote that I wrote, and then we're going to go through her email. The quote says, "Life is short and your time is limited. Everyone must determine what is really important to them and then have the courage to build their lives and lifestyles around that. Someday your life is going to be over. What would you build if you knew you could not fail? What must you experience or achieve in order to feel like you accomplished your life's purpose and enjoyed your life? What must you change in your life right now in order to put yourself onto a better path to accomplishing your grandest goals and dreams?" I mean, that's definitely something that we all need to be thinking about consistently in our life. Because as we grow and we experience, and we change and we evolve, what we want today, 10, 15, 20 years from now, we might want something a little different. Remember, one of our 6 human needs is variety. So let's go through your email. She says, "Hi Coach, I am 64 years old and my first child was born out of wedlock to the love of my life who treated me like shit. I tolerated it until she was born. I could accept him treating me poorly, but not her." Well, good for you for having the strength to leave. "My second husband, who I've been married to for close to 40 years, and the father of my second child was the exact opposite. He is safe, boring, but I loved him. At that time, they did not use the phrase in love versus loving someone. I love him, but I'm not in love with him." So obviously, definitely some passion missing there from there. And you can tell yourself it doesn't matter, I don't care, and then one day somebody comes along in your life that makes you go, that stirs things inside of you, like what happened to me in my mid-20s about a year after I had gotten married. If you've read my book, which if you haven't read the book, you can read it for free by going to my website, subscribing to the email newsletter. You'll get a link in your email. When you click that, it'll take you to confirm, it'll take you right to the members area, and you can start reading literally in seconds, understandingrelationships.com. And if you'd like to get the audiobook, you can go to Amazon and order it from Audible. And if you do an Audible free trial, you can actually get my book for free. So you got no risk, got nothing to lose. "We have lived a boring coexistence most of this time. No sex, but it did not bother me. My children are highly accomplished, and my grandson is also highly accomplished for his age. All was fine until I started working in a correctional facility. Lots of men there. Well, my aunt used to work in a corrections facility for about 15 years. She told me lots of stories. And this one officer was flirting with me. I've always had a very, very low self-esteem. So if you don't believe you're entitled to very much, then being in a relationship where there's really no sex and no passion, it seems perfectly normal because you're constantly telling yourself, well, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve to have what I really want. I don't deserve to have that kind of passion that I did in my first relationship. I am very overweight, pretty, and very accomplished, but I never felt like I was worthy of anything because of my atrociously fucked up childhood, which is another story. In this facility, it is difficult to talk because officers, staff, and inmates are within hearing distance, especially in my unit. He started flirting with me, and I felt alive. You're never too old to become the person you're meant to be. I mean, here she is, 64 years old, and she's had a life-changing event. She meets this other dude, and he stirred some feelings within her. And what's the word I'm looking for? Recrystallized, or I can't think of the word right now, but he started something that caused her to say, you know what, these feelings that I had that were dormant, and now she's like, what do I do? I started exercising, I lost some weight, but I have a long way to go. So isn't that interesting? She feels really attracted to this guy. He makes her feel good because he's flirting with her. And what does she do? She starts exercising, taking a little bit better care of herself. Now why is that? Remember, people will do more to avoid pain than they'll do to gain pleasure. So there's potential pleasure there of getting even more attention, even more flirtation from this guy. So there's a positive reward for it. So she's like, I'm going to go work out. Because if she's got a husband that doesn't want to have sex anymore, he's got no libido, then why would she care? I mean, I talk about this all the time in videos. So in other words, she went from saying, it's not something that's a part of my life, to all of a sudden, this is important to me, and something may potentially come of this. So now she has a positive reason to take better care of herself. My libido went through the roof, fantasizing and masturbating through the roof. Because of the attention he was giving me and the feeling of being alive, I started to like him. I thought he was married, but now I think he is separated. I am married, but no sex in a very long time, and now I am longing for the intimacy with this other person. I would never divorce my husband, and she puts never in big bold letters, because it would cost me a fortune, and he does not deserve that. My girls would hate me because I hurt my husband. I am of the belief that people find out, especially in the facility where I work, where everyone is fucking everyone, but they all act like Puritans. Yeah, my aunts told me plenty of stories about that. The guards are having sex with the inmates. The guards are having sex with each other. I mean, what do you do in a prison? It's really interesting talking to my aunt and listening to some of the stories, the things that she's seen and experienced. Remember that I talked about this a couple years ago in a video. I think it was 4 or 5 years ago. There was a woman that worked in a corrections facility, and she'd been with her husband, I don't know, 20 years, 30 years. And so she started having sex with these two inmates. I think both of them were like convicted murderers. And so they convinced her to break them out of jail. And she was going to I guess they were going to come up in some manhole a couple blocks away from the prison. They were going to hop in her car, go to her house, murder her husband, and then they were going to haul ass across the Mexican border and live happily ever after, or so she thought. But what happened was she chickened out, and when they come up out of the manhole, she wasn't there waiting for them. And then obviously they escaped. One of the guys that escaped ended up getting killed in a shootout with police. And the other one, I think he got shot and got recaptured. But she's in jail now, and her husband stuck with her despite the fact that these guys were going to murder him if they went through this. I mean, his wife is going to have them murder him, and he still took her back. It's amazing the power of emotions and how somebody who seemingly has everything going for them and is a smart, intelligent person throws away her career and ends up in jail herself. We always do things based upon emotions, and we use logic and reason to justify that decision or that purchase when it comes to buying something. He is at times hot and then cold with me, which hurts me. Flirts one week, and then he's cold the next week. I guess when he has a date with someone else, he won't even look at me. I have overheard him saying he has gone on some dates and they have not been much to speak of. He has told the staff that he likes me, but made it sound like it was because I am witty, not in those words. He initially was very attentive to me, stares at me, and flirts with his eyes and his expressions. I have 3 degrees, and he's a high school grad, and he's not very articulate. His vocabulary consistently is mostly the words fuck. I never use that word at all. And duh, a bit of an exaggeration. I would love to have an affair with him, but I would be a trophy based on my position for him, and I really think he would talk. So it sounds like there's a lot of downside risk in that, obviously, and plus you say you want to stay faithful to your husband and don't want to break up your family. I don't like hot and cold, so I have been the ice queen. Fuck you and the horse you rode in on is my attitude. And I know I'll never leave my husband. Yes, I have tried working things out with my husband, but he is 74 and has no libido. A fun night for him is a good meal and going to bed early. So the things you got to consider is that if you say you've tried to work out with your husband, if you tell him you have needs and you want to have sex and he won't get a penis pump, he won't take Viagra if he's got some kind of medical problem, and he has no interest in satisfying you, what are your choices then? If your husband is unwilling to participate in your marriage and fulfill you sexually, your choice is to put up with it and be unsatisfied and fantasizing about this other dude. You could potentially leave him, or maybe you could have some kind of an open relationship where if he says, hey, you know what, I know you got needs that I can't fulfill and don't want to fulfill, so yeah, go have an affair with this guy or somebody else. I'm totally cool with that. I mean, you're going to have to obviously sit down and have a real heart-to-heart conversation with your husband. You've got to decide what's important to you. He also may come back and say, no, that's not acceptable, but I'm also not going to fulfill you sexually. And again, there's your choice. You either put up with not getting your needs met. I mean, the whole purpose of all relationships is you go there to give. You're there to help each other grow, become more. You're there to meet each other's needs. And it sounds like from what you said in your email that he's refusing to meet your needs. And so in the interest of full disclosure, you got to say, well, these needs are important to me, and as my husband of 40 years, you're telling me you have zero interest in fulfilling them, then we can stay together and I can get fulfilled somewhere else, or we could split up and go our separate ways. I mean, you have to figure out what's important enough to you. Is having sex and getting fulfilled sexually important enough to you to potentially risk the end of your marriage and having your daughters pissed off at you? I can't answer that for you. My job as a coach is not to make your decisions. It's just to give you information and skills and tools so you can get them answered for yourself. But if you're overweight and you want to be more attractive to your husband, maybe it's a part of you taking better care of yourself and looking sexier. Whether it's for him, I mean, the idea is you should be doing it for yourself because you want to look good and you want to feel good and you're a sexual being. We're all human beings are sexual beings. But I mean, the reality is that if he's not willing to fulfill you, then you can stay and not be fulfilled, or maybe you guys can work something out where you kind of have an open relationship where you can go have a sexual relationship with somebody else, or you may end up having to end your marriage so you can explore that other part of yourself if your husband's just simply unwilling to fulfill you. I mean, if you had a heart-to-heart with your daughters and you're like, well, your dad just basically has just said he has zero interest in sex and he will not make any effort in that department. I mean, would your daughters really say, well, Mom, I guess, you're not going to have sex the rest of your life or as long as you stay married to Dad? I mean, I would think that your daughters would want you to be happy. I mean, if you sat down and you had a heart-to-heart with your husband to find out where he's at, if he's willing to make zero interest, you got to decide what again, you got downside risk here. He may say pound sand, we'll get divorced, or he may say, you know what, I have no interest in that and I want you to be happy, so yeah, if you want to go have a sexual affair or a fling with somebody else, I'm cool with that. I'm down with that. Again, it's like I can't answer that for you. You have to talk it out with him, and then you've got to decide what's best for you. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, are you satisfied with spending the rest of your life not being fulfilled sexually? Because, I mean, your husband's 10 years older, and men tend to not live as long as women anyway, so are you willing to, I mean, what happens if your husband lives another 10, 15, 20 years? Maybe you'll be physically incapacitated where you're unable to have sex down the road. I mean, you got a lot of questions that you need to answer for yourself and what's important to you. It's like when I do phone sessions with people, it's all about what's your outcome? What do you want to achieve? And then I help people get past their limiting beliefs, the story that they're telling themselves, what they're doing to sabotage their success, and then help them create a plan of action that they can take so they can achieve their outcomes. And your outcome is you want to have sex, but you're married to somebody who doesn't. I mean, that's the bottom line. If you can't work things out by communicating, then you can stay, or you can leave, or maybe you change the terms of your relationship to one that's more kind of a open relationship where you can go and have sexual partners. But think about it from this perspective. If you go and start hooking up with this guy and you really enjoy spending time with him, and he causes you to feel like you're young and beautiful again, you want to take better care of yourself, you may find yourself leaving your husband anyways down the road. I mean, you got a lot of, I mean, just because you're 64 doesn't mean your life is over. I mean, you have to decide, again, what is important to you. What do you want? What is a must? What must you achieve, and what must you experience between now and when you get to the end of your life? And then you got to, just like I said in the quote in the beginning, you got the courage to build your life around that answer. Even if it means you might have to experience some pain and some difficulty with your relationships with your family members. She says, I still have a lot of fire in me. My question is, should I have an affair with him? My crotch is on fire for him. You have said that you should look at the consequences, and I think they will be high for me, and if I feel that I will regret it. But I am so emotionally starved that I don't think I can resist. Well, the honorable thing to do is to have a serious discussion with your husband, and you got to stand up for yourself and what you want. If he's unwilling to meet your needs, I mean, quite frankly, that's pretty fucking selfish. That's reality. And then you got to decide, does that work for you or not? Does the downside risk outweigh the benefits? I mean, think about the negative consequences of you continuing to live your life and not be fulfilled. That's gonna cause you to lose hope on some level, or many levels for that matter. And once you start to lose hope, it's like, why take care of yourself? I mean, you start taking care of yourself because this guy gave you attention and he made you feel beautiful. And you said yourself, it's like, I'm not ready to have one foot in the grave yet. If your husband is of the mindset that he's got one foot in the grave and he just doesn't give a fuck, well, from a value perspective, you don't share that value, and you certainly don't share that particular goal. And again, if you want to be happy, you want to be fulfilled, you got to be with somebody who shares your goals and shares your values. So you obviously have a lot to think about, but at the end of the day, you got to do what's right for you. So if you have a challenge or a difficult situation, whether it's business or personal related, and you'd like to get my help, you can go to my website, click the products tab at the top of your screen, and look whichever coaching option works for you. And I will talk to you soon.